Right, welcome to Warblock. I'm going to play the Eritrean Ethiopian war game. I'm not going to play it all. I'm going to try and keep it to 15 minutes. I just want to give an overview. I think this game would be an epic based on the amount of time it takes me to play much smaller games. I think that this would just be hours of play. I think this is the big daddy of games on this site, and obviously get bigger games, but I just wanted to sort of introduce this game. Really, I don't really want to. Oh, I will click the play thing and try and get straight into it. I've made a few modifications, so there are still some sort of bugs here and there, but I mean, a bit of historical background. I mean, essentially this is Eritrea, and although this is, I think, the current border, the border was more like that. I mean, this was a clear invasion of Ethiopian territory. One thing that I haven't done, there's quite a few things that I keep meaning to do, there's so much to do, I can't do it all. A little toggle to toggle all the units off so you can see what's underneath, but there's a fort there, that's fortified. That's a fortified, and that's the objective. That's a place called something or other, and you've got to take it. Now, it's an interesting strategy. Basically, Eritrea has nothing to do in the first turn, and I'm not actually going to do anything because I want to maybe speed it up, get some turns through. So, yep, next the Ethiopian player. Now, this is where the gameplay gets interesting because it's a big game and you've got some air power. Now, if you look down the list, Ethiopia gets quite a lot of units, including a little more air power later on. But if you also look down on the main list, you'll see that Ethiopia doesn't actually get any troops on until turn 10, and they're coming down here. Now, as the Eritrean player, you're not allowed to just pile down here and form your line. You're forming your line here, which is part of a much larger line. I don't know why they chose here to attack here, but so you've got to play sort of within the sort of the framework of what's meant to be, really. But so essentially, I mean, you could move about, do what you want, but I haven't moved them. Although, to be quite honest, you should move them. Now, the point I'm really trying to get to here is you've got 10 turns of nothing but air power. And so, you've got to think, okay, as the Ethiopian player, what do I want to take out? I mean, there's so much to choose from here. Now, currently, the armour has no significant value, although it will do. Sooner or later, it will be 1.5 times versus infantry. Infantry will also be half attacking it, so it's a double whammy. So armour is a good choice. Artillery is a good choice to go for. You might choose to take it as artillery, or if you look at these, they're rockets. Rockets have a little more range. So what do you go for? Large artillery regiment, or do you go for the air power? Because essentially, every time you fly your sorties, these are going to be, having a crack at you. So I think what's interesting about this start play is the choices. Now, I'm not going to really think too much about the choices because I just want to get on with, showing some gameplay. So essentially, it's through to the air power section, as has been seen before. As you can see, there are 6 air power defense units on this stack. But there's also 2 within range, so that gives him a total of 6, 12, 18 factors. That's pretty high. So this is one of the reasons I'm going for this air unit. Now, this is a game mechanic and not necessarily something that I really want to promote, but I'm also very much into, well, if the rules allow you to do it, then do it. What I'm getting to is, if you attack these, now I can't remember really what the odds are, but if you attack these, and now I might have the mechanics wrong here, it might be using the 1 as the defense. It should be using 6. I played this briefly before and ironed out a few bugs. There might be still some more. It's full of bugs, but they're not big ones. Point is, if I do this all in one attack, I might get 2-to-1 odds. If I do it as 3 little attacks, I might get 3 1-to-1s, basically get better results. And that's what I'm trying to say, is I'm going to just go for this unit. Now on this one, I got 1-to-1 odds, and there was no result. Now if I'd got a result, these odds here might have been a bit different. I'm going to go again. So if you see what I'm saying, so there I got 1-to-1, but I've got an exchange. Now if I'd done that on a 2-to-1, I could have got no result. I'm more likely, by staggering my units, to get a reasonable result. And there you go. I could have done those all one at a time. Look, it might have been because I attacked him before, but now he's at 2 depressions. So it's better to do it one by one almost. Now I'm not sure whether or not because it seems a bit odd to me that he's only got an offensive factor of 2 and he's got defenses of 6 because he's, air power, and we've got these units here. So I will maybe have to look into that, but I don't want to slow the game down too much. Essentially, the first 10 turns are pretty much taking things out, and I can tell I'm not even going to get to the interesting part of bringing the units on. But this is an incredibly interesting game. Now, historically, I don't know exactly what the setup was. I don't even know the deployment. All I know is that the Eretrians had about 2 brigades. This is 2 very generous brigades. Put it another way, well, to put it into perspective, the Ethiopians have twice as much. They have 2-to-1. And so the list is really, really long for the Ethiopians. So when they start putting their units on, you've got a lot of gameplay. You've got a lot of options. It's a strange game. It's very different to all the others, and I'm just wondering how. I just don't have time to play it through. Now, when I was looking at it strategically, I would be. Let's suppose this airplane is the unit. I mean, you're supposed to basically attack here. Find the weaknesses. Do you go over the mountains, through the mountains with infantry because tracked units can't go through the mountains? Do you do this? When I sort of looked at it, I thought, what I would do, I'd go this way, break through these smaller units with everything, because if you've got all of your units concentrating on this one place, he'd have to come out of his defences to attack around there, and then up here, and but that would be an illegal game move. I'm just saying, if you were to play that, there's no rules in it, nothing to stop you doing it, but slap on the wrist if you do that. Now, I'm going to try my strategy out again. I'm totally going to fail at wrapping through the air power and getting to the infantry movement. So, see, there you go, 1-to-1. Now, there's got to be something odd there. I think he's defending on that, but it doesn't matter. I'm just going to use it, do it for what it is. I'll have to sort that out. Now, what we haven't had so far, which is sort of what I was maybe almost looking out for. Now, this does actually give you a bit of an insight, because instead of doing 1-to-1 attack and maybe getting a 2-to-1 and getting ADR or an exchange, he's so whittled down now at Depression 5, I'm getting twice as much against him. So it's certainly better to do flights one at a time. Now, that's the end of the Ethiopian turn. And the Eritreans are not going to move. Now, I think if you were playing the Eritreans, they would actually, I think, start moving, and I think I might deploy them a little differently, and I think I might actually reinforce them to some extent. I've got to look into the defensive, the way the air power works on these air units. I thought I'd sorted that out. I don't want to keep apologising for that, but actually you really need to put these air units with infantry or with something larger to get the odds down and to protect them. Otherwise they're quite vulnerable on their own. So I think they need sort of like maybe an extra set of battalions just to defend their positions. I just don't know how the long-term gameplay is going to work out. But already, I'm truly pummeling the Eritreans. They're on 2 depressions. These people are on. Oh, who did we attack? No idea who I attacked. It's so bizarre. Right, well, now we've got even more air power. It is interesting me to some extent how I haven't yet. So he's got no depressions against him. I'm living in a dream world. I can't even imagine who I was attacking before. Thank God. Now, there's a couple of little things to say on this. Firstly, that's a helicopter. I will be dividing air power into 3 unit types: helicopters, ground attack, and bombers. Because I think the air defense will behave differently on all 3. I think helicopters are very vulnerable. Far more vulnerable than a fast moving ground strike that's just doing a flyby with some bombs or whatever, and it's certainly a lot less vulnerable than a strategic bomber at 30,000 feet with laser guided weapons. You're not going to get that sort of thing with your with your sort of your AA guns. So I'm going to introduce that. But anyway, the thing about this Eritrean game is that they've got a lot of air power, and unless you start to take it out early, you can lose units. Now I just lost a unit. That's permanent, and if that happens earlier on, it's a compound. It has a compound effect. If you lose your air power, I think you've seriously at a loss in this game. I haven't played it through yet, and that's one of the interesting things about this game. It does seem to have so many permutations and variations in the way it could work that it's sort of important. Do you actually go for their anti-aircraft first, which is what I'm doing here, or do you go for their artillery or their armor? Thinking forward to a time when their armor is actually, now he's at 7. I'm not going to bother going for him anymore, just simply because he's not worth anything. So I'm going to find something else to attack. So I think essentially it's fair to say that this is a big game, a lot bigger than the others. As you can see, he's got 7 depressions. He's got 2. Someone else here has. Unless he actually died. Is there someone there? I think the fact that I can't see another air unit is possibly something a bit odd. I'll have to look back at how the setup should be. So anyway, maybe I can go for some rockets. We're doing as much damage, earlier on against the Eritreans is the key. You get 10 turns of your air power, and again, they do have anti-aircraft. This wasn't shot down, but half strength. So I think this is interesting just because you get so long to strategically undermine their positions with your air power before you even bring your units on. So I'm going to sort of got a few more seconds, but I think basically leave it at that. Hopefully you might have some fun playing this game. Typical. 6 seconds left. Can you do it? Exchange. Welcome back to the second half of this game. I've been twiddling with things, and I can't remember what I did. I think I looked into it, and this unit here, I think, was actually eliminated. I just completely missed it. So you can eliminate units with air power, which is sort of forgotten, or didn't even know. But then what I did add was this toggle counter. I'll probably change it, but a cursor mouse over. But when you click it, look, all the units disappear. I just said this at the beginning. Now it looks a bit of a mess because these are all dug in marks. I'll probably leave those there because it's probably just as well. But what you can clearly see now are the 3 fortification units. So if you actually look at this, I've tried to sort of, not so much imaginative, but this is a mountain, so it's impassable to armour, things like that. And this is a mountain, and this is a mountain, so it's pretty tough. I mean, you could probably go up there, down here, and across here, or you could send troops over this way. But you can see now the road where, when you put the units back, it's actually quite hard to see where that road actually goes. Some things are easier to do than others, and I think that's pretty clever. It didn't work at first, it took me for ages, well, not forever, but I was about to give up on it. It's JavaScript for you. So anyway, I think I'm going to sort of tweak the irritations up a bit, because I think they're just going to get pounded in this way. Mission was aborted. Definitely something not right with that. That's what I was actually looking into. This is my magic code. Anyway, so that's an exchange. So bit by bit, one of the other things I've put in is when you click the back to game, it focuses on the map. It will jump up in a bit. I didn't do that. It just jumped. Obviously, it's a bit slow. My connection's a bit slow, and the server is actually probably slow as well. You know, if this game ever takes off, I'll maybe do something about that, server-wise. So, again, only turn 3. I can't remember when the Ethiopians start coming on. So, I think, obviously, I don't want to bore you to death. I think it's just you can't underestimate, you can't sort of understate how important these initial airstrikes are with regards to defining your strategy. I mean, we've already removed one air defense unit. We've got one there. In fact, you know, if I can take that one out, and I don't think they're so you should have a total of 6. 6.6, which is not right. He's defending at 1. He should be coming up at 6 for that, and 6 for the surrounding air defense. So Another thing I'm going to do, I'm going to make these boxes a little bigger. They were done like this because of stacking considerations. But I'm actually going to put some stacking limits in. And hopefully that will force lines as opposed to blocks of troops. Against that. Once up to about 0.8, they're useless. Then we'll go for some rockets though. Not so successful, but he's now on depression factor 2. You can see he's got a fair amount of air defense in play there. That little unit has not been hit yet. Where is he? I didn't see him. There he is, hiding under there. So that's the Ethiopian unit. Move. Right. Let's go for this unit here. So clearly there's a bit of a bug with the air defense still. This is why it's in yeah. This is why it's in beta at the moment. I mean, the thing is, it's still playable as you can see. I mean, unless I explained it to you, you probably wouldn't notice. Which is how I like to keep the bugs, so that, you know, they're a little more obtuse. There you go. This is air defense kicking in, quarter strength. Maybe I should try a little higher odds. Exchange. And defender retreat, that worked. So it's down to 50% there. So again, I'm just sort of messing around really, but I think it's just really interesting that you've got a game where you can spend 5 turns prepping the line, and I think going for the air defense and the artillery is the thing to do. And then your troops appear. Now what they are not appearing here is, which I'm thanking myself for, is entrenched. Before they appear to entrenched, because they're actually sat there. The way the game works is the units are actually there, you just can't see them because their turn hasn't come up yet. But because they were sat there, every time the cycle went round they were being entrenched, and they all came up entrenched. But obviously they're not. Now clearly what's happened here is they've appeared, and now the Eretricians are going to fire back. Now, I designed the map before I thought of this, but it sort of works okay, but because you come on slightly staggered, you know, you're really vulnerable to the full mass of all these units. But the artillery, for example, this artillery, 1, 2, 3, you can just about get that, but you can't get any of the others. There isn't really much artillery elsewhere. Some rockets, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So the rockets can fire, say, onto this unit here. And I think I'm going to bring everything to bear on that. 1 to 2, attacker retreats. So that wasn't very good. 2-to-1 an exchange. So nothing particularly good for the Eretricians, but I think I'm going to put everything for, because these are big units. One-to-one, all that, and I've got put everything in there at a 1-to-1. I really want to sort of do some damage to their back, but obviously the Eretrician opening move on there hasn't worked. Now I'm deliberately not moving any of these units because I don't want anyone to get bogged down into sort of thinking about strategy. I'm just really trying to sort of introduce the gameplay, and you get a hell of a lot more air power now. What to use it on? Well, I think somehow blowing a hole in something would help. Well, into retreats. I mean, again, I keep reiterating this. Not necessarily balanced games. I mean, the Ethiopians did win this, and they do have a hell of a lot more just to represent that. I think the interesting thing is just exploring, how they did that, and also just getting a sense for the scale of things. I mean, just doing it and working it through is actually quite a sort of task in its own right. So, a bit of a disappointing air assault for the Ethiopians there. But I think this sort of game is magical, really. It's everything that, when I just look at this big long line of blue things, it reminds me of the GWD, whatever it was, Third World War series, where you just got a lot of units. And when you start to look at it, I mean, that's the joy of board gaming. This type of chip, counter and hex wargaming. It's just looking at these little lines and reading the detail in them. There's nothing quite like it. And I've been looking at a few other games on the internet. I'm really not thinking very well here. Let me just move my troops forward. Done with it. Been looking at a few other games on the internet, and a lot of the counters are rubbish, so there's not enough time left to do anymore. What I'll do the end turn, and what you should then see is even more Ethiopians pouring on. I mean, this is where it starts to get interesting. These Ethiopians, there's a lot of them, and they're just going to pile straight into here, I think. I don't think this line is strong enough, but it's interesting. Anyway, I'm not going to cut off this. I'm not going to do this video another time. I just thought I'd add that excellent toggle feature, which still works. Look at that. See you later. Bye. Welcome back to the third installment of this game that I was only going to do a 15-minute article on. Hold on. So, I've done a few changes there, actually. I think I know why some of the air defence wasn't working as it should. And, let's just attack this rocket here. Results. Okay. Well, I don't really want to start thinking too much about playing the game. Sort of a few oversights. Obviously the toggle thing now is in place. Which is nice because it means the road, which goes through mountains, goes this way. But there is this little pass. Can that be real? The only thing is, it's a it looks good, but oh no, these are hills. That's okay. It would have been an impasse for the tanks otherwise. Yeah, so let's just see what happens. I've turned the toggle thing off, but attrition factor 8. I don't want to do that. I don't know why I don't, but I think it's got to be this one here. What happens if I send everything against that? What happens? Let's see. See what the odds in this game are like. Because the problem with the air power, when you use it like this, it's a bit obscene. It's the same in the Falkland game. You just blow the Marines out of the water, they don't last more than a turn. 5-1 odds, defend a retreat. Well, the retreat is an air assault, but Attrition 4. Okay, let's see how much rocket power I can get on him. Well, get some rockets and artillery. 1-1, attack and retreat. Okay. Well, now what I'm trying to sort of just broach, because I'm not thinking aloud in this, is that what I really want to try and encourage is the sort of strategic thinking, like these people here holding a line, and troops moving forward in a line, because it makes no sense to move forward in a line because you're weak across the board, and it only gives them a chance to counterattack. So if I just pile straight in through these 1 or 2 hexes, you know, it doesn't make any sense. But that's sort of fairly relevant, really. What I'm trying to do is say is, because sooner or later I'll have like 10 units stacked up in there, because I'll put everything in these 2 hexes here, and they'll all go and attack in there, and they'll all end up as one big stack, and it just gets silly. So what I'm thinking of doing is having a stacking limit of 25 manpower or 3 units, whichever one is the least. So usually 3 units. 25 would be the maximum sort of division unit size. It's going to take a while before anything like that gets done, but let's start moving these units forward. So he's going to go there. Oh no, that's because he's fired. Oh, there's the mountains. to 2 and an exchange. It's always worth doing. Now they're at depression factor 7. Okay. I think they've lost some air power. Well, there's not a lot of choice. I think we're just going to go for the really obvious. Look at that. Yeah, quite a lot of air defense, and it's shot down. 1 1/4 strength and all that for no result. Poor old Eritrea, they're really going to suffer. Everything. 2 to 1 an exchange. Well, this is ranged fire. Okay, let's see what we can get on there. Not in range. Possibly already fired. Don't know what though. Okay. And it's got even more units coming in. This is this is what makes this type of wargaming good. But just how to do this, and how, I think the thing to do is to just bite the bullet and start building up a line. Armour, mechanized infantry, armour. Oops. Okay. And air power. Well, I'm definitely going to have to try and punch a hole through here. And he's at half value. I think I'm seriously going to have to up the attrition values here just to make it a little more entertaining. Now, this is interesting because he's now got air defense in there. Oh no, it is air defense. Sorry, I thought I was doing land attack. It's late. 2 to 1 exchange. So not brilliant, but I didn't use all my manpower for that. So depression factor of 5. These 2 units have not been hit yet. 1 to 2, no result. Maybe I'll spend a bit more just taking out some of this artillery. 4 to 1, defender eliminated. That's good. Let's do more of that. Now the question is, do I push forward? Do I make an assault into there now? Because he can't really attack into me. I wonder. This is how I want to play the game. And the other thing, other than stacking and things like that, will be attrition fire. So these will be able to fire into each other. Because at the moment it's very much a sort of artillery game. But there's no reason why these units, because the distance between this hex and that hex is probably about a mile. You know, these are not sort of this is not hand-to-hand combat. They can sit there. They're in the zones of control, but they're not shaking hands. And so basically, I think when I develop these rules a little further, there will be attrition fire, and it's exactly the same as combat, except you select a non-advanced mode, and it gives you a quarter of your value, which I think is fair. You then just keep firing at each other until you found a weak spot. Now that is a weak spot, because he's at 50%, but I'm going to give it another turn. Well, let's see what we can do against those people. 1 to 1, an exchange, 1 at quarter strength. The quarter of strength means that he was not necessarily shot at, well, he was shot at, something like that, and fled. That's quite often what they do. These pilots, they come in, like in the Falklands, they came in so low because of all the anti-aircraft fire that the bombs that they're dropping didn't have time to, their fuses didn't have time to engage, and they just landed without exploding. And in the Iran-Iraq war, pilots would, first sign of a lock-on, not even gunfight, just a lock-on, they just turn around and go back because they were afraid of losing their fighter planes. They would also fire at maximum range. As soon as they had any theoretical target, instead of getting close and making sure they were certain, they would just fire and then head back. So they'd fire like 10 miles away because their rockets had 10-mile range. You know, ideal range 2 miles. So that's what happened there with the quarter factor. Whose turn is it? Now I think I'm going to actually maybe move some units. I'm going to reinforce that hex, and I don't really want to sort of start playing it properly. Now there's a lot of silly stuff here because this mechanized unit. Oh no, yeah, you can from the road. Now this is a nice feature because it's a fortified hex. It's actually fortified, so he's immediately ×3. So basically I'm going to start shuffling the irritations along to meet this sudden surge. Look at that, that is so good. Look at these strange units. Anyway, time's getting on and I'm not going to do any more. I'll upload this, I'll join them all together, and you know, as I said, this is a fun game. You should play it by paying your money and joining the game and having some fun. See you later, bye.